It is time for today's Talkback segment. Each day we post a question on CourtTV's social media pages. We gather your comments and questions and respond right here on the show. The case against Matheau Moore is coming to a close as the jury picks up their deliberations beginning tomorrow morning at 8:30 a.m. Moore is accused of murdering his wife and staging the scene to make it look like a suicide. And in Ohio, jurors are given the opportunity to ask questions during the trial, and throughout this trial, we've seen them do just that. Very intriguing questions, sometimes giving us insight into what they may be thinking about the case. But now, it's your turn. For today's Talkback, we wanted to know what questions you have as this case comes to a close. All right, still with me, attorneys David Bruno and Randy Kessler. All right, guys, our first comment comes from a user on Twitter. S. Texas asks, although I have watched the entire trial, I'm having trouble finding which day they actually had evidence that Moore was the one that killed her. Perhaps somebody could direct me to the evidence against him. All right, so clearly that guy, David, is buying the defense's argument that there isn't any direct evidence pointing to him as the killer. They're basically really relying on this timeline and his actions in and around the murder.
Yep, and his statements as well. I think that's important too, because rule number one, criminal defense, zip it. Because just like here in this particular case, prosecutors up there making arguments that he's inconsistent, that he lied, and somehow that's evidence that the man killed his wife. You know, so I agree with the questioner here. I didn't see one particular day or piece of evidence that tied him to the killings, and that's basically what this jury is going to have to grapple with, whether or not the circumstantial evidence proves it beyond a reasonable doubt. And if it's one person, it is not a guilty. It could be hung or not guilty if it's unanimous the other way.
All right. Our next comment comes from Luetta. Luetta says, any repercussions for the prosecutor's bad behavior this morning? Little context on that, folks. Early this morning, before the jury was brought in, there were some issues revolving around a motion. And the judge was going to rule on a motion, but all of the prosecution's team wasn't in the courtroom. And that really upset the prosecutor Sleeper. Let's take a quick look at what happened.
This is a sham that you're going forward. When the court was
you're going to sit here. You're going to sit here.
You were told about her unavailability and specifically told her on the phone not to cancel that appointment, that it wouldn't be a problem.
Well, I'll tell you what. If you want to be here for the decision, that's your business.
Well, Your Honor, I think this is outrageous. You're going forward without the prosecutor.
All right, Randy Kessler. I've never seen anything like that, to be honest with you. This is the way he was speaking to the judge. You just don't do that. Any repercussions for something like that?
I don't know if there are. You know, is he going to be brought up for being unprofessional? I don't know. You know, it's hard to stand up to a judge. And maybe he was right. Maybe his argument was right. But it's not necessarily what you say, it's how you say it.
Yes.
He should be ashamed, right? It sounds like he had a good point. Sounds like the judge was wrong. But you don't embarrass the judge. You respect the robe, not the person. We all know people that, you know, sometimes before they were judges, we really loved them. Sometimes before they were judges, we didn't, or we didn't know who they were. But when you become a judge, you respect that position, you treat it with the respect. The person in the robe has earned the right to wear the robe and to be the authoritative person. I don't know what kind of repercussions, maybe to his career. I imagine he's going to issue an apology and somehow reconcile it because it's only good for his future to do so.
Yeah, pretty dramatic moment, and I think an apology is certainly in order. And I think at the end of the day, it's about the way he spoke to the judge. All right, our next comment comes from Donna. Donna says, how is it possible for the search dogs to miss a dead body if it was where she was found? David Bruno, this is a question I've had throughout this case. I really don't think that that body was there the entire time. And again, that raises a lot of other questions, but it's just so odd because there weren't any sort of animal interference with the body, which you would have expected if it had been hanging there for 3 months. It looks like a place close enough to where they lived that it would have been searched over and over. I don't know, your thoughts on that?
I talked about this last time I was on. These dogs, the credibility are in question. I had a similar case. We were looking for a fugitive in a field. The dogs were running around the field. One of our detectives went to go pee in the bushes and found the fugitive. I am not kidding, Michael. The credibility of the dogs are at issue. Good argument for the defense, though, for sure.
All right. Well, David Bruno, Randy Kessler, thank you so much for joining me this evening. Truly appreciate it, as always. Always a real pleasure to have you guys on the show. We'll have you on again soon. Coming up next, we're going to